It's on the ground. Man, it's a big one. Look at the debris circling around this tornado. Look at it. Huge tornado. Look at this thing. Massive tornado. Take cover. This is a big tornado. It's a large tornado.
You know, when you look at typical tornado aftermath, it looks like a neighborhood has been blenderized. But when we got to the neighborhood, you couldn't tell there was even a neighborhood.
Where are the ranges? Where are the refrigerators? Where are the washing machines? Where are the outside air conditioning units? Nobody knew where they were.
People got out there, and where were the people that were in these houses?
The foundations were swept clean.
We all look up and we look over the horizon and we realize that there's nothing on the horizon anymore. We're used to see houses. You could see the Double Creek subdivision. You could see everything that was here from my house. And I remember thinking, well, that's odd.
Houses were obliterated. I'm talking about everything in the house was taken. Their flooring was taken. Bathtubs that you would normally go into were gone.
I've seen burn victims and shot victims, but I've never seen anybody spread out 10 yards before.
Basically, they found a finger over here or a wrist over there, and they were able to try to piece back together the people, literally, to try to identify them.
And they said, hey, we found a body over here, and we found a body over here, and nobody could tell who they are. You could just barely see the figure. Once you witness it, you never get over it.
It's the most devastating thing I've ever seen. In all my years in search and rescue, I've never seen anything as devastating as that.
The tornado just devastated them so and took all the hair off of them and everything. Nobody could tell who they are. You could just barely see the figure.
Took his cows and sheep and goats. He took the hide right off. Just took the leather right off. Pretty bad. Yanked the scalps right off of people too.
Is it hard for you to talk about what you saw?
Yeah, I'd just rather not talk about that.
I just dropped down on my knees before I left out of the office and I said, God, take me if you take somebody, because they've got families.
She was mom holding on to her. They were just holding each other. And they died that way.
There was a younger girl, couldn't have been but 6 or 7 years old, and she was twisted directions that she shouldn't have been.
Was there anything you could do for these people?
I didn't even bother to take any pulses because they were gone. I mean, just obviously, there was nothing anyone could do for them.
From where those people are standing in the yellow jacket right there, from there over was houses.
There was nothing left.
Trailers, real houses.
There was nothing left.
Massive destruction.
You ever seen anything like it?
No, sir. It's my first tornado. Hope it's my last.
I was hearing this sound. It was like a bear growling.
A sound I've never heard before. This evil howling, it's a real scary sound.
It was really total, complete destruction.
It was too large to outrun, and judging by the damage, too strong to have survived it in anything except away from its path.
When most people talk about the weather, they think of it as kind of boring. It's small talk, a conversation starter, an icebreaker. But of course, sometimes the weather turns. The sky darkens and becomes almost impossible to ignore. And if you're a weather enthusiast, you probably get this question often. What was the worst tornado ever? A lot of people would say Joplin in 2011, an EF5 tornado that was the deadliest in the modern era. Or was it the 1999 Bridge Creek Moore F5, a tornado that still holds the record for the highest wind speeds ever recorded anywhere? Or the 2013 El Reno tornado, the largest tornado ever seen, And of course that really just depends on how you want to measure it. But this storm wasn't the biggest, the fastest, the deadliest, or the most costly. This one didn't just tear homes apart, it made them disappear completely. The May 27th, 1997 Jarrell, Texas F5 tornado. The most violent tornado ever recorded, and in my opinion, that's not even slightly up for debate. The way it crawled slowly across the Texas landscape, obliterating everything in its path and taking all the debris away with it. There is no other tornado like it before or since. Today we're going to take a close look at this storm and break down exactly what makes it the most violent tornado in all of recorded history. Jarrell is a small town in the heart of central Texas, tucked away between Waco and Austin just off Interstate 35. It's a calm, rural place, the kind of town where everyone knows each other. In 1997, only about 400 people called Jarrell home. But this brutal F5 tornado wasn't the first time Jarrell had been hit by a deadly tornado.
8 years ago, they were hit by another deadly tornado.
A tornado weaving a path of destruction 3 miles long and a quarter-mile wide. An F3 strength storm, meaning winds of up to 200 miles per hour. And it was a direct hit.
This tornado caused many injuries and sadly one fatality. There's no known photos or videos of the 1989 tornado, but it made a lot of headlines and had a big impact on everyone in Jarrell. This tornado served as a warning for something much worse to come that nobody could have predicted.
2 times in 8 years is too many for me.
So now we go to 1997. We're talking peak 90s era. The Cold War is over. Bill Clinton is president.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. Not appropriate.
Michael Jordan is in his absolute prime, just dominating basketball. The Spice Girls are telling everyone what they really, really want. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, still moonwalking across the world. And if you're a 90s kid like me, then... And there hasn't been a national weather headline in several years, not since 1992 when Hurricane Andrew hit the coast of Florida. Like I said, it's peak 90s era in full swing. Times are mostly calm and peaceful, but on May 27th, the sky over central Texas is coming to life. Just not in a good way. Something ominous is coming. The atmosphere is getting ready to release something so catastrophic that it would redefine much of what we knew about tornadoes. And Jarrell would never be the same again. The forecast on May 27th, it did not look like a major tornado day, not even close. The National Weather Service issued a moderate risk for central Texas, 2 out of 3 at the time. But on today's scale, it may have only been an enhanced risk, or even a slight risk. Forecasters thought that upper-level wind patterns were not aligning for major supercells, but deep moisture, extreme instability, and a few wildcards set the table for the tornado of a lifetime. The Cape value on that morning was recorded at near 7,000. That puts it in at least the top 5 highest Cape values ever recorded during a tornado outbreak. That much energy in the sky, in the atmosphere, that much fuel in the environment makes it seem like the sky could just rip itself apart violently. But the wind parameters were a mess. There was no alignment, there was no strong wind shear aloft. Forecasters expected some pop-up storms, maybe large hail, but not a monster tornado. Outflow boundaries added just enough spin near the surface, trapping thick, humid air under an extremely unstable atmosphere. And going into the afternoon, the Cape levels were nearing 7,500. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there was a wild card in the atmosphere that day, and if you know the Jarrell tornado, you probably already know that this was the presence of a gravity wave. And if you're a real weather nerd, you probably already know what a gravity wave is.
You're a weather dweeb, a weenie, a nerd, a dork.
Now, Now, a gravity wave is not cosmic ripples through space-time. What it is a subtle atmospheric oscillation, air pushed upward, pulled down by gravity, then bouncing back like a weight on a spring. This quiet dance between gravity, buoyancy, and inertia can seem insignificant, but under the right conditions, it can spark chaos. And Jarrell is the textbook example. A day with weak winds aloft, no classic severe setup, but a gravity wave meeting a cold front and outflow boundary, providing just enough lift that fragile nudge set off a supercell that would carve a path of devastation, one of the most violent tornadoes ever recorded. So with that, the stage was set. The atmosphere was a classic loaded gun, a powder keg, a pressure cooker simmering with instability. Powerful supercells are forming. Heat, moisture, lift, and rotation all building, all waiting. The sky grows heavier by the hour, edging closer to snapping. And when it finally does, that energy will find its release in the form of a violent tornado, unlike anything seen before. Shortly after noon, storms start to fire just north of Jarrell. At 1:15, a tornado watch is issued for a large portion of east central Texas. As the storm drifts to the southwest, it's tapping into extreme instability, spawning a series of brief tornadoes along I-35. Each one served as a warning of what was about to come. At 3:30, a tornado warning is issued that covers Jarrell and surrounding areas. And then it happens. Another tornado descends from the base of the storm. A narrow, slender little funnel that at first looks beautiful, but it wouldn't remain that way for long. This tornado would be growing into a 3/4 mile wide monster, the most violent tornado to ever touch down.
An ancient Native American legend speaks of the dead man walking. If you see him in a tornado, you are about to die. The townsfolk of Jarrell can now see the arms and legs of a multi-vortex tornado approaching. The dead man has just walked into Jarrell.
Tornado right there on the ground, and it's moving on the ground right outside the station here.
Okay, it's moving slowly toward us, but mostly south. God, look at that.
There it is. There it is right there. That's it. This is a serious situation. We've had several tornadoes on the ground earlier, and tornado warning is currently under effect.
There were a lot of cameras on this tornado, and honestly it still blows my mind how good the footage is. This was 1997, no HD, no drones, just shaky camcorders and pure luck. But somehow they captured it. Some of the clearest, most surreal tornado clips ever from almost 30 years ago. The tornado continues to approach Jarrell, and it's really intensifying. It's ramping up in its intensity, it's increasing in size, and there's a few very rare and extremely critical characteristics. Most tornadoes in the US, they move to the northeast, sometimes more north, sometimes more east, but they're generally carried by prevailing winds aloft towards the northeast. But Jarrell was different. It moved the direct opposite way, going southwest, backbuilding along a boundary in direct opposition to the typical flow. It was an eerie, almost unnatural track, something that happens in far less than 1% of tornadoes. This storm seemed to almost crawl against the grain of the atmosphere itself. And the main factor in what made the Jarrell tornado so devastating was its forward speed. The average tornado has a forward speed of around 30 miles an hour, but when the Jarrell tornado reached its peak intensity, it was only moving 5 to 10 miles an hour. And the National Weather Service even estimated at some points it was moving 1 to 2 miles per hour. That's basically stationary, just spinning in place. And the worst part about that is that it happened right as it was reaching its first and only neighborhood subdivision full of people.
And I did some back of the envelope number crunching. 3-minute tornado is what it would be over a house. If you figure out the size of this tornado plus its slow movement, it would be 3 minutes. That is an extremely long period of time to be under a tornado.
The forward speed of a tornado always plays a critical role in how intense and how severe the damage is going to be. Obviously, nobody wants to be inside of a tornado, but if you do have to be in one, you want it to be fast moving. Get in and get out. The last thing that anybody wants is to have a massive, almost mile-wide tornado just spinning in place right on you. And that's a terrifying thought. 3 full minutes inside of an F5. And by the way, this 3-minute number that Tim Marshall gave, I've tried to run the numbers every which way that I can, and I think it's a lot longer than 3 minutes. So let's run the numbers real quick and see how long this tornado would take to get off your property from the moment it first reaches you to the moment it leaves you. Take the tornado width and divide it by the forward speed of the tornado, and it's simplified by converting that to feet per second and total feet wide. When we divide the total width in feet by the movement per second in feet, the most conservative estimate we can give is 4.5 minutes. That's hovering on you for 4.5 minutes. And that is the most conservative estimate we can give, because the National Weather Service explicitly stated that while the tornado was over this subdivision, it was moving at some points 1 to 2 miles per an hour. This estimate is at 10 miles per an hour. There's really not a lot of tornadoes that we can compare this deviant motion to. The only other tornado that I know of that even slightly compares to Jarrell would maybe be the 2013 Bennington, Kansas tornado. It went in a big loop, so it means it was going southwest at some point and also moving very slow. Thankfully, this occurred over open farmland and not a subdivision full of people and families trying to shelter from the tornado, like it did in Jarrell. The Jarrell tornado moved so slowly and with such intensity that it didn't just scrape the surface, it ripped up entire sections of asphalt road. Of course, ground scouring is something we see with violent tornadoes, but this was on another level. It's now just before 3:50 p.m., and up until this point, the tornado has carved its way through mostly open farmland, flattening some fences and trees and one lone farm supply building. And in 1997, there were no tornado sirens in Jarrell, so the only way you were going to find out was watching the Weather Channel or cable news. Maybe you had a weather radio, maybe a friend or family member called you, or maybe you just looked up in the sky and saw it turning black. As the tornado inches closer, the residents of Jarrell begin scrambling to find shelter. Anywhere they can find it. Basements, bathtubs, interior closets, entire families sheltering together. And it's right around this time that the tornado sets its sight on the primary and really the only target, the Double Creek Estates subdivision.
And by radar, so it's a serious situation. So it looks like that may pass just off towards the west of Temple. We may be fortunate of that, but persons around Lake Belton, you need to take cover immediately.
And in the final moments before impact, there's no siren, there's no countdown, just a black wall on the horizon, growing, twisting, and heading straight for Double Creek. Most people didn't stand a chance. While many sought shelter inside of their homes, others fled, seeking shelter anywhere else.
Griffin leads a group of 60 panicked people up this embankment to crouch under an overpass.
In today's day and age, we are very strongly advised against seeking shelter under an overpass. But at the time, there was an urban myth of sorts that overpasses were a safer place that you could go. And honestly, in the case of Jarrell, was probably better than staying in your house. In Jarrell, the usual rules of tornado safety didn't apply, they were flipped. And if you didn't have a storm shelter below ground, your best chance of survival wasn't staying put and hiding behind a doorway in your house. Your best chance of survival was trying to get out of the path entirely. This video right here has always been one of my favorite clips of tornado footage. There's something about it that's just always haunted me. The tornado is almost pure black. Cars are fleeing down the highway, giant hail is crashing out of the sky, and it's right here, now, in this moment, on the other side of that highway, it's happening. What I truly believe is the worst destruction ever caused by a tornado in recorded history. I don't think there's been a single moment in weather history more violent than what's happening right here.
I saw my neighbors right next to me outside looking at it. And we could all see it coming. And then I went inside and I never saw him again.
Bonnie and her family huddled in a bathroom, the kids in the tub.
I said, grab mattresses out of the trailer so we can cover with them.
Brenda Cooper sought cover in her family's rock quarry.
We got down in the deepest quarry, the hole that we had dug, and you could hear the wind and the blowing and hear the debris going around. And of course, we were looking.
Two women with no idea how their lives were about to change.
I think altogether it lasted about 10 minutes, but it seemed like it was forever.
Down in this valley, that is all that's left of Jarrell's Double Creek Estates. When the tornado jumped into the valley, there was no way out. Most of the houses here have no basements and no shelters. Up the hill, the few people who did have shelters, some of them built 50 years ago, were packing them with friends and neighbors when the tornado hit.
At Double Creek, they're ripped apart. An entire neighborhood has disappeared.
Where that pickup is running right about there, you know, along that fence line or the pole line there, there were like 2 rows of houses coming down.
Double Creek subdivision down there. I looked at 15 houses in particular. Yeah, of course, what I remember from 25 years ago is immense destruction, vegetation scouring, road pavement removed, trees that were nubbed at the ground, cars that were mangled beyond recognition. So this was a slow-moving tornado. It was a very intense tornado, and those combination of slow-moving and intense made that no home could really withstand that. And we're talking about removal of the commode, removal of the bathtub, things that we normally see after a tornado. But houses swept clean was the bottom line on all of the 15 homes that we looked at.
There's one more statistic I want to walk through here, and in my opinion, it might be the most important of all in telling just how violent the insane destruction of the Jarrell tornado was. How it stands completely alone in all of tornado history. This is the clearest way to see that. Let's take a look at a few major tornadoes and compare just how many structures they hit to how many structures they slabbed, swept away completely with no walls left standing. Now, when the National Weather Service does a post-storm survey, they assign damage ratings structure by structure. Not every structure that gets slabbed receives an F5, EF5 rating. Some of them have structural issues in their construction, they weren't anchored properly, so they're basically excluded from ever receiving that rating, even though they get slabbed. Let's compare the Jarrell tornado to both of the Moore F5, EF5 tornadoes and the 2011 Joplin EF5 tornado. All of these numbers here are for homes that were officially listed as EF5 or F5 damage. There were plenty of other homes in all 3 of these tornadoes that were slabbed down to the bare foundation, but they didn't meet the engineering criteria to be considered as an EF5 candidate. But looking at Jarrell, there were only 38 homes hit, with 27 of those being F5 damage. That's over 70% of homes that were hit were officially slabbed, an incomparable and unprecedented number.
What was a neighborhood with grass yards and everything was now just foundations and mud.
The tornado was coming, and it was coming from the back of the house, and I could see it over the trees. And I said, oh no, dear Lord, please not that.
Even the people who took the right precautions to protect themselves couldn't be saved by a tornado this strong.
It was too large to outrun, and judging by the damage, too strong to have survived it in anything except away from its path.
Part of the problem with the Jarrell tornado was its slow forward velocity across the Double Creek estates. Normally, we think of tornadoes perhaps raking across the ground 60 miles an hour. In this case, it was only moving forward at a rate of about 1 to 2 miles per hour for about 10 to 15 minutes. The Double Creek estates was simply wiped off the map.
Like I said, Jarrell was a town of just 400 people. And on that one day, in one moment, 27 of them were gone. Over 6% of the entire town. Family, friends, neighbors, business owners, all taken in an instant. Now let's walk through one final comparison, and I believe this may be the single most important metric that we have for understanding what the most violent tornado of all time truly looks like. Because if we're trying to measure destruction, we can't stop at Doppler radar or the size of the tornado. It's about what actually happened inside the path. What happened to the homes, to the people, the families hiding in closets and bathrooms, in hallways? This isn't just about the storm, it's about the human cost left behind. Let's compare a few major tornadoes and see how many homes were hit and on average what percentage of those homes recorded a fatality. The 1999 Moore F5 hit approximately 8,000 homes, with 36 fatalities, meaning less than 0.5%. When Moore was hit again by an EF5 14 years later, there were a lot less homes hit, but a higher percentage of fatalities in those homes. The 2011 Joplin EF5, the most lethal tornado of the modern era. There were 7,000 homes that were hit and 161 fatalities, meaning about 2.3% of those homes had a fatality on average. Now, looking at Jarrell, this tornado was only on the ground for 5 miles. It hit one neighborhood, the Double Creek Estates. Only 38 homes were hit. Inside of those 38 homes, 27 people lost their lives. That means that over 71% of the homes hit in Jarrell recorded a fatality. So what does all this tell us? It tells us that if you're in the direct path of an EF5 tornado, your chances of surviving are around 98%. It's a lot higher than people would think. But in Jarrell, the numbers tell us a completely different story. If you were inside a home in Jarrell that was hit, even if you're sheltering, the chance of survival is not 98%, it's not 75%, it's not even 50%. The chance of everyone in your house surviving is less than 30%. And this is exactly why the Jarrell tornado was the most violent tornado of all time. Of course, any tornado fatality is a horrible tragedy, but in Jarrell there were 3 whole families that all lost their lives while sheltering together. No survivors. Nobody there to tell their side, nobody to tell the story of what was happening in those final seconds together.
We are getting unconfirmed reports that people we thought were missing are in fact safe, but we do not have any record of it.
A list of survivors is posted at the church, but the name of Jarrell Gower's 11-year-old son Brian is not on it.
I hope he's still alive, and I hope that Mac's wife is still alive too.
A makeshift morgue is set up at the fire department, but families are not allowed inside.
I just gave him a picture of my little boy, and they're going to match the picture I have of my little boy and the mugshots they take.
9 o'clock Wednesday night. Authorities are behind closed doors trying to match those photographs of the missing with the remains they recovered. For many families, the answers do not come from listening to the officials, but from looking at these pictures. In their hearts, they hope for a miracle, but their minds realize no one could survive this.
The hard part is getting it set up to where you had to start looking for victims. And you have hundreds of people going arm length apart and patrolling an area, just every little piece of debris.
The first victim that I came across, you could see that it was a human form, but the wind had abraded the body so much that your body does, or your mind disconnects you from it. You say almost like, hey, that's not a real person there, you know, but you know in your heart that it is. Once you come across one and then another and another and another, it just kind of snowballs on you, and you begin to hate the storm.
My problem was that I thought maybe my grandsons were flying around hollering for their daddy. One is bad if you have a funeral, but we had 4. The school had just stopped for the year, and all of the kids were at home, and my son was a Bluebell ice cream route man, and he had rushed home, and everybody trying to get in the shelter of a house. And there was just no house to be saved in the path of this thing.
The disaster is the broken hearts of those left behind.
Larry Igo was working in his auto parts store when his wife called and said, "Hey, there's a tornado coming." So Larry took off and drove home and got there just in time to shelter with his wife, his twin sons John and Paul, and his daughter Audrey. And sadly, all 5 of them lost their lives.
I don't know a thing good in Jarrell that this family wasn't involved in.
With them, a piece of the community died as well.
These sisters have never talked publicly about their loss. On this anniversary, they felt it was necessary.
They did what they were told to do. They were in the middle of their house, in the bathroom, and so it was just a big, bad tornado.
Keith and Cindy Mooring, along with their 2 sons, Eric and Ryan, took shelter during the tornado. Unfortunately, all 4 of them also lost their lives together.
There's no way you can explain the emptiness that you feel, because you know nobody did nothing wrong. If you have loved ones, tell them you love them, because they might not be here tomorrow.
This was Judy Johnson's backyard before the tornado hit. This is after. Behind her truck, you can make out the roof of the home next door before the storm. This is after. Here's her truck. And this was Judy's back porch before.
I almost wish that they would have left my Chinese...
And after. Like everyone else in Devil Creek Estates, she returned home to nothing.
Did you know where your house was? No. If it wouldn't have been for this, if it hadn't been for this porch right here, I don't know whether I could have really told.
This is ground zero 2 weeks after the storm. A grove of 100-year-old oak trees are stripped bare.
Do you know who lived where? Not really. Far beyond. Igos? Right down there. The Igos, I think, live right over there that way. And then I think the The Smiths or Carmona, I think the Carmonas lived over there, right there.
Clay Duvall and his older brother Donnie rode the bus down this road twice a day. The only way they can pick out where their classmates had lived is by counting wreaths.
It's going to be hardest when the first day of school.
Yeah, the first day of school when you look around and there's this and then someone you've seen there 2, 3, 4 years in the past, and they're not there, and you'll think, they must be sick.
When you go to school, it's going to feel very empty.
My best friend is not here today. She was really a special person. The world has lost a whole lot because Cindy Mooring isn't alive anymore.
In addition to losing her home and everything inside, Judy lost her next-door neighbors. The entire family and so many others wiped away by a storm which raked a neighborhood down to its foundation and left a scar this town will bear for years to come.
You can rebuild a home, but you can't bring back a loved one, and I understand that. And the most devastating thing about this storm is the loss of life.
Then Governor George Bush paid a visit to Jarrell.
The tornado hits, and it's as if it sucked the life out of the ground.
Government responded quite well. Governor Bush went up there a couple of days after and said it was the worst tornado he's ever seen. Asphalt was ripped out of the streets. The homes were wiped out. The slab, there were reports of 300 head of cattle killed.
Some of the families came in, as you know, the Igos, the Moorings, and the Smiths all chose to have their loved ones buried here in Georgetown. And that process was very emotional as well to deal with that devastation.
Out of the 27, I found 14 of them myself before other help started showing up. One was a little baby underneath some debris, the Igo family. It was a horrific sight. You know, the livestock was sprawled all over the place.
And a lack of technology identifying those bodies were a nightmare.
We did not recover everybody in their entirety. There were body parts sprawled all over that area, and it took us a lot of tedious work to identify them folks.
My God, it's a wedge. This thing is huge. It's coming right at it.
What do you think that says about the human spirit?
It is really uplifting. You know, it brings people together, and all these people come out here and help each other. It brings the community close together.
Piles of logs and trash cover this land that was once covered by trees and dotted with homes. Residents know it will take a long time, but they plan to come back here to rebuild their homes and their lives. On Rocky Lane, the cleanup effort was assisted by volunteers.
I think we've had fantastic relief. I think once everybody got to know what went on out here and how much damage was done, then all this help started coming in.
And they all worked together to clear debris and help residents pick up the remnants of their belongings. The boats that were once scattered across the marina have now been moved to higher ground, and work is underway to clear the lake of any remaining oil and fuel. But not all the cleanup effort has come from volunteers. Government departments and agencies have also done their part. Do you think everyone's come together pretty well to get all this cleaned up and help these people out here?
You betcha.
When you mention the word Jarrell, Texas, it's like tornado. I think it changes your life.
In the days and weeks that followed, people came in from everywhere to help with the cleanup effort.
People just stepped up immediately to try to help, to try to donate, to try to comfort, to do all of those kinds of things, not just for a day, but for a long time after.
However, throughout this tragedy, the people of Jarrell have been able to find some hope in all this devastation.
So you guys trying to collect old memories, find?
Well, finding what we can from our home, little pieces, every little thing is something we wouldn't have had before. Because that was our house and not much left.
That can be said for many of the victims of Jarrell, but the strength of this community is their ability to carry on.
neighbors helping neighbors, and some that don't live next door.
I don't know half the people here. There's 3 people that live in this house, and I guess there's maybe 15 or 20 people that come out to give them a hand. You know, there's no names exchanged. You just do what you have to do.
Mike Malik and little Nicole don't have to do anything. They don't even live in this neighborhood, but they came anyway.
I just saw on television that all these houses got destroyed, and I just wanted to come out and help and get all this stuff out.
It makes me feel pretty good. I mean, that people come out and help other people when, I mean, they probably have stuff wrong with their house, but ours is gone, and they're out here helping us, and they should be at work and all that kind of stuff, but they're just out here helping because it's in their heart to do it.
These helpers have come by the dozens, responding to a voluntary call in an involuntary way.
We moved here on Sunday. We moved in on Sunday. So we don't know anybody in the neighborhood, and everybody has been so nice. They've all come over and said, do you need some place to stay? Do you need some help? This guy, I have no clue who he is. He lives on the street. He said, y'all need some help? I have some tarps.
To just imagine that homes are out here is kind of difficult, because walking through all the debris, everything is just, you don't find big pieces of much. I mean, everything is total devastation.
I saw it on TV, and what amazed me was the fact the aerial shots, there was absolutely no debris, meaning that everything that was picked up was pulverized. And now I'm down here walking through that same area, and it's just unbelievable.
This town has lost at least some of its heart.
They were excellent people. There's going to be a big hole in the community now.
You start thinking of all of these other people didn't make it. Why did we? Obviously, I've looked at quite a few tornado damage scenarios, and so I kind of, in my mind, rank them about how they are. And Jarrell will, and still today, Jarrell is the baseline to which I measure all other tornadoes.
It's hard to talk about it still. 25 years later, it's doesn't seem, just doesn't seem right.
Unless you were here and saw what we saw and went through what we went through, you couldn't understand. And you couldn't understand how that affects you now.
We were real happy to be alive. Make no mistake about it, we were real happy to be alive. We can replace the house.
You can lose everything. If you got your family, I mean, that's the best thing you can have.
You lose a lot of memories, a lot of tangible things. But if you walk away with your family, that's the best thing you can get.
Well, that's the story of the Jarrell, Texas F5 tornado, one of the most fascinating in all history. There's something so mesmerizing about these major tornado events and tornadoes in general. Just ask a storm chaser, they can tell you that. One minute you're watching a huge wedge tornado in the open countryside, and the next minute you're picking through a pile of jagged debris that used to be a home, searching for a family that was sheltering inside. There's not much in life that captures the extreme highs and lows in such a raw and instinctual sort of way. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It actually does help out a lot. And leave a comment. I like to see what you think. Was Jarrell the most violent tornado ever? How would you define most violent tornado? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.